I don't think we have too many new people. Oh, there's Chris. Um, but for those of you who don't know, I'm Liana Toscanini, founder of the Nonprofit Center of the Berkshires. And this other side of the Berkshires class is the brainchild of Megan Wilden, and I agreed to be the interviewer because I have everyone's contact information in my database. And it's been really great for me to talk to executive directors of nonprofits at length. I never get anymore, it seems, 45 minutes with one person to chat about their mission and what's happening in their organization. So this has been really nice for me, and I think nice for everyone who's listening, because it's kind of intimate. We're all sitting here in our kitchens and our porches and our living rooms, getting to really just get updated on what's going on, besides Jacob's Pillow and Tanglewood and everybody trying to do virtual events, what's really happening in the health and human services areas and the community groups that we have lined up. And they're all kind of interconnected, which is really great. We all work, no closed door, as they say. There's a lot of, certainly with food security and other things, lots of people working in these areas. So that's been nice too, the kind of cross connections. So let's get started. We're gonna start with, and people are welcome to put their videos on or off. It does not matter to me. We did change to meeting format so that we could see people. I know that there was a little bit of comment on that from both groups, people presenting and people listening, that it would be nice to see people. So welcome everybody. And we are gonna start with Berkshire Bounty. I still have in my head Backyard Bounty of the Berkshires, so I have to get that out of my head. But Berkshire Bounty was founded 5 years ago, and our co-founders are Jay Weintraub and Mark Lefenfeld. And they are going to tell us today a little bit about what's going on I think we've got them at their busiest time of year, right when fruit is being gleaned, which is part of the food that they deliver to many, many food distribution centers. So I'm going to let you guys take it away and tell us, just maybe start with how this concept came about 5 years ago.
Sure. I'm Jay, and first of all, I'd like to thank Liana, the Nonprofit Center, for having us today. Berkshire Bounty is a food rescue operation. We collect food from supermarkets, from farms. We pick fruit from trees. And we also purchase food using donations that are given to us. And then we deliver that food, we are the transport, to what we call food distribution organizations, which would be essentially food pantries, Salvation Army, senior centers, etc. Things have changed a lot recently with COVID. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But that is essentially what we do. And our history is an interesting one, because I have an orchard, and in 2015 I noticed that there was a huge volume of apples that were falling to the ground, and when it came to September, October, we couldn't eat enough apples to make. We couldn't make enough apple pies. We couldn't use the apples. So I had this idea that we could collect apples and other fruit from neighborhood backyards in the Berkshires and distribute them to food pantries. And I had lunch with Mark, and we kicked around the idea. It sounded like something that made a lot of sense. We put our plans in operation, and in 2016, there were no apples. It was a bad year for apples. So we were kind of devastated. And so we, over the ensuing winter, we rethought our strategy. We said, we've got to find another outlet for a source of food. And so we started developing relationships with a few supermarkets, and that has grown into the main part of our business, because apples and peaches, pears, now probably are about 3% of what we collect. And our story is one of tremendous growth, propelled really by a merger that we did early last year with another similar organization. They had a different operating model, but Mel Greenberg had been collecting food for a long time here in the Berkshires. And he was a friend of ours, and we approached him because he was having health issues. He's since passed away. But he agreed that it made sense for us to join together. And those two organizations, they were called Berkshires Bounty, and we were called Backyard Bounty of the Berkshires, which Liana referred to. And so the two together came to be called Berkshire Bounty. And the important thing for us was we got some more volunteers from that organization. Mel had some money that we used to buy a van, which has helped us in our transportation issues. From that point forward, we've had tremendous growth. We continue to seek out new routes, new places to pick up. Our main sources of food are Big Y and Guido's. The Big Y here in Great Barrington, and Guido's in Great Barrington, and also in Pittsfield. So the first year we collected about 8,000 pounds of fruit. And delivered it. We thought we were doing a good job. Second year, with the supermarkets helping us to supply food, we collected about 30,000 pounds. And again, we thought we were doing a tremendous job. With the addition of the Mel Greenberg staff, we collected last year 130,000 pounds. Again, our growth very, very substantial. And this year, I would think, propelled by the tremendous need created by the COVID-19 situation, we believe we will collect and deliver 200,000 pounds of food. So it is a great story. It's a story that's easy to sell to new volunteers, and it's one that grabs at people's hearts.
I want to just insert here and remind people to mute themselves. If you are on with us today, you can press the mute button in the lower left corner of your screen when you are not speaking. It helps to reduce feedback and some other funky noises like clinking plates and other things. So, okay, so that's the backstory. Mark, did you have something to add to that?
Yes, I'm Mark Lefenfeld. Just as an aside, as soon as this meeting started, a lawnmower started. So if the noise gets bothersome, let me know and I'll move to a different location. But Jay did mention COVID-19, and we're often asked, what was the impact of COVID-19 on our operations? So I'd like to spend just a few minutes on that. Two things happened relatively quickly, and we were really blindsided by it. Number one, the demand for food went up significantly. The size of the food insecure population grew dramatically. We only knew how much anecdotally by looking at the length of the lines at people's pantry, how it doubled and tripled at certain times. Secondly, as the true risk attending COVID-19 became apparent, a lot of our older volunteers appropriately chose to pull back because they did not want to expose themselves to the risk of COVID-19. So we had increasing demand and a decreasing supply of volunteers, which is a tough combination. A couple of things happened to let us deal with COVID-19 much more effectively than we initially thought we could. Number one, we proactively reached out for more younger volunteers. And we were fortunate in that we got a good group of younger volunteers who said, yes, I'll step up, I want to do it. So that took care of that. The increased demand, while again, intuitively you think the demand goes up, and in fact did, we became aware of the fact that the schools were a significant part of that increase in demand. As the schools shut down, a lot of school families were dependent upon schools for meals. So there was a big gap to plug. And out of that grew a groundswell coalition of organizations involving all the school districts, a whole bunch of nonprofits, United Way, Berkshire Bounty, of course. And we together really came up with approaches to meeting the increased need. So while the initial reaction of COVID-19 were two negatives, we turned it into lemonade a little bit. That groundswell coalition really evolved. A lot of people expressed some real creativity. And together we joined forces to respond to the needs, not only of the school, the families with school-age children, but it was expanded to elderly people in the 4 area school districts that were part of this coalition. The other plus that came out of it, talk about silver linings, is there was an accelerated flow of donations, not only to us, but to lots of nonprofits involved in the food insecurity field or other areas that were impacted by COVID-19. So while at first we held our breath and we said, what's going to happen with COVID-19? We fairly quickly got over that, and we started to wrestle with how to resolve those issues with the help of others. So COVID-19 was plus, well, initially minus, but it turned into a terrific opportunity. We also saw, just one last thing, with the increase in the size of the food insecure population, there was another issue we had to be sensitive to. When we take pictures, or anybody takes pictures of pantries, everybody's very careful not to take pictures of people picking up food. Because there's a certain stigma attached to going to people's pantry or any pantry. As the lines got long and COVID-19 worked its way into daily operations, the lines were outside. So all of a sudden, a lot of these folks who had never attended or never went to a pantry before, not only had to deal with that reality, but also they were concerned about being viewed online. So we had to be sensitive to that. So we had all this physical stuff to do, but we had to be very sensitive to the emotional needs of a lot of folks. And not that we were responsible, but we needed to respect those needs. So that was our COVID-19 experience.
Let me just emphasize one point that I think we did not, which is our volunteers, which are just so vital to our operation. You know, it's basically been word of mouth, but we've been very successful, particularly in this COVID-19 period, in attracting volunteers. Mark referred to this, that young people have come forward. But just to give you an idea, one of the great decisions I think we made early on was that we wanted to establish routes, like a pickup at Big Y for delivery to 3 or 4 food pantries. And we wanted to form a team that would take responsibility itself for the management of that route. So, you know, maybe it's a 2-person route. So if there are 4 people, then they are responsible for figuring out who is going to take it on every particular day. We're managing it from afar, but they've got the responsibility. And just to put this in perspective, we now have 30 people who are delivering regularly every week. So it's a pretty big volunteer organization, and we have about 80 people who are in our email list to see if they want to do a one-off delivery, because what's happened, especially during COVID, is that we'll get an email saying, you know, do you have someone who could pick up something at a farm and deliver it to a particular place? And we'll put out an email to these 80 people, 30 of which are already doing a regular trip every week. And inevitably, we do get the people we need to do that.
If I can just, go ahead, Jay, were you finished? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I just want to expand just a little bit upon that. What we really wanted to do, and I think we've succeeded, is build a truly grassroots operation. We didn't want Berkshire Bounty to be a top-down organization. As Jay suggested, we give these teams full responsibility, tempered by common sense. But we tell them to solve their own problems. There are so many moving parts to what we're doing now. If Jay and I were responsible for making every little decision, we would go nuts and a lot would slip in the cracks. So it was key to us to have the volunteers not just do the tasks, but take responsibility, be proactive in recognizing and solving problems. I should also add that Jay, the numbers Jay cited were accurate, but if you look at the number of people who are registered, we have close to 140 people registered. Now, that's not to say that all those people are active. Some of them are seasonal. Some have come here from the city and moved back already. But this is an easy sale to make. Anybody who takes a moment to listen typically says, yes, I want to help. So those volunteers have been the bedrock of our success.
And I thought maybe I'd go over a couple of things that highlight the kind of growth, the way we're growing recently. So for example, we were picking up from Guido's in Pittsfield and delivering it to a number of places in Pittsfield. We approached Guido's and we said, could we pick up a second day? And we've arranged for a second one delivering to other places. So how do we do that? As I said before, we put out an email and we've gotten 3, 4, I think 5 people who have said that they would do that. And one person had to drop out after a time and someone else filled in for it. But here we have a new route, which is collecting, I don't know, 200 or 300 pounds a week, delivering it to one location in Pittsfield, and that food would have been thrown out. And that's a point I want to make. The food that we're picking up from the supermarkets would end up in the compost heap. So this is food that we're truly rescuing. We call ourselves a food rescue operation, and that's really true. Another new program that we started, and we just started having our third one on September 1st, is what we call our mobile food drive. And what we do is we send out email to various lists asking people if they would be willing to donate food, which we will pick up at their house on a particular day. And that food is basically picked up by volunteer drivers and delivered to People's Pantry in Great Barrington, with some to South Congregational Church in Pittsfield. And it's grown every month. In August, we collected 2,000 pounds of food. This is not perishables. This is packaged food. It's canned goods and packaged goods that have a shelf life. So again, those are the kinds of things that we're involved in. And the third one I just wanted to point out is that we were contacted by a representative from the Berkshire County Correctional Facility, believe it or not. And you may have seen an article about the hydroponic program of growing lettuce. And we've been an integral part of delivering that that lettuce to places that have needed it, including the schools that Mark just mentioned. The last thing I just want to mention, which I talked about briefly before, is food purchases. We have tried to maximize the dollars that we're receiving, and we are telling people that we are simply going to turn around and buy food with that money. And we have established relationships with Guido's and also a food wholesaler. So we're buying wholesale instead of retail, and we are leveraging that money very, very significantly. To give you an idea, every once a month, we're delivering 900 dozen eggs to the South Congregational Church.
If I could just say one thing, Jay and I will bounce back and forth and we can talk all day. If any of you folks have questions, we're happy to respond. So we don't want you to hesitate to ask us anything.
I have a question. So have you ever tried to figure out how many people you're actually serving?
Yes. There is a metric that Food Bank of Western Mass uses all the time. And 1.2 pounds of food will serve one meal. So if we are collecting 200,000 pounds, then we are serving whatever the math is, 180,000 meals.
Wow.
Right.
So you guys are obviously really, really busy. Are there other roles for people to play in the kind of, as volunteers, in the sort of running of the organization? Let's say your favorite thing is not driving around delivering food. What else could somebody help with? Certainly the food drive,
Right.
the mobile drives, yeah.
Well, we're happy to answer that, but Richard, you had a question?
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Great. Hey, first of all, Jay and Mark, it's nice to meet you virtually. You know, I know I've spoken to Jay, and I think Mark, you and I have also communicated, and I'm delighted that you're joining us today. And it's helpful for us to learn more about what you guys are doing. My question is this: I was curious. I think Jay, you mentioned 200,000 pounds of food. What's the demand right now? What are you hearing from the food pantries? And is the supply that you're providing meeting the demand of the county? So that's question number one. And number two, what's the demand looking like going forward? You know, what are you hearing from the food pantries that you're giving them the food to? You know, I'm just trying to sort of get my hands around what what the effects of COVID are on, food issues.
You want to go first, Jay, or should I?
You can go ahead. You got the floor.
Well, we have not met the demand. Our single largest distribution point is South Congregational Church, and we deliver about 2,000 pounds a week to her. Mary Wheat, the woman who runs it. And we had some hesitancy about giving food that would not be given out. And Mary's continuous refrain is more, not more, but she said, we can use every bit of food that you can give us. People's Pantry in Great Barrington start to have some hesitancy about the amount of food that not only us, but other people were donating. And to date, there's been no indication that that demand has been met. I will say, with our Groundswell Coalition, I told you we're involved with the 4 area school districts. It remains to be seen on what happens when the schools actually open in terms of reinstatement of dollars that were being sent by the state to the schools. It's conceivable that all those dollars will flow back in. I personally doubt that will happen, but the demand may be softened down the road. On the other hand, we've gotten rid of the $600 a month unemployment hit, and the stimulus payments are all long spent. So I think a lot depends on the nature of government action on a go-forward basis. So there's again, just in my mind, a real risk of not only a continuation, but an acceleration of the demand.
It's not that we're speculating about the effect of the government money. We've actually seen it in the numbers of people who have come to People's Pantry. It rose significantly at the beginning of COVID. Then it kind of fell back a little bit when people got their government funds, and now it's headed back up somewhat. A lot I think a lot will be dependent upon employment statistics, whether people get jobs or not. But I think Mark is exactly right. The demand is really insatiable, and it was really not being met before. And even if we go back to a post-COVID environment, I think that, as Mark says, in the Pittsfield area in particular, we can't collect enough to satisfy the demand.
Thank you.
Liana, to go back to your question about what types of things can a volunteer do. When somebody registers to volunteer, we send them, I won't say a form letter, but it's the same substance. And we talk about a number of things volunteers can do. Number one, they can be part of a volunteer team on a regular route, as Jay described earlier. Number two, they can be part of the mobile food drive, which again, Jay explained earlier. Number three, we have these one-off situations where, for example, one member of a regular team can't make it. And one of the things we ask the volunteer teams to do is solve their own, or you fill their own gaps. But sometimes that just is not workable. So we will reach out to a volunteer and say, we need you on this one particular day, or we need you on a series of days because somebody's out of town for a week. And then lastly, new opportunities will come up. Most recently, we established a relationship with April Hill Farm, which is part of the Green Ages organization. And we had to develop a whole new cadre of volunteers. That said, we always get new opportunities. I think it's about to rain here. I don't know where everybody else is.
We just had a downpour here.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
It's completely sunny in Sandusfield.
Okay, it's on its way.
I was thinking you guys couldn't hear me because it was pouring.
Well, you sent it over to us.
Yeah.
Thankfully, the microphones don't pick up that ambient noise, thank goodness.
The other thing is we are continuously, more so in recently, presented with new opportunities. As we expand both functionally and geographically, we sometimes need people of particular expertise or particular strength. Some of our routes involve lifting heavy boxes. And we are always very clear if you're just delivering meals to homes.
Let me also say that we ask everyone to use a mask and to practice good social distancing.
Right.
In fact, we insist on it.
Right.
We do have a question from Val Fox, I noticed.
Let me just finish up one thing before we get to Val. Some of our boxes weigh as much as 40 pounds. And we don't want people trying to lift those boxes and hurting their backs and stuff like that. So Val, go right ahead.
Hi, nice to meet you, Mark and Jay. You're doing great work. I understand from speaking to the folks, I don't know if you've come across the report that they produced at Berkshire County Food Access Collaborative. It was a really interesting report. Somehow I stumbled on it and I was surprised to learn, I'm sure this number is something you've heard before, but about 10% of the population in Berkshire County is vulnerable to food insecurity. And a large driver of that is transportation. And so it seems to me that your organization is really like a logistics kind of provider, right? You're connecting, because there seems to be ample amounts of food if people are willing to kind of open up their personal pantry doors, or grocery stores are willing to open. You know, you talked about Guido's. There's so many farms in the area that are just going to compost food. I mean, I think it's 30-40% of farming a year, farm products are automatically go into the compost bin. So I'm just curious how you manage it all, like from a logistics perspective. Is this just the two of you with like volunteers and spreadsheets, or is there like some kind of engine on the back end doing all this?
If there's an engine, I want to see where it is. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, no, we basically handle those logistics. I will tell you that it's gotten to the point where we are allocating our time more than we did in the past, which by that I mean, for example, when we first started out, we would pick 2 apple trees on someone's property. We won't do that anymore. We just can't devote the management time and the volunteer time to doing that. So we are definitely being more careful with how we spend our time. I don't know if Mark mentioned the fact that during COVID-19, many of our food pantries and senior centers have closed. So in that also, we've concentrated our efforts. We now deliver basically to 3 places, which is People's Pantry, South Congregational Church, and WIC here in Great Barrington. We do a little bit, to Salvation Army and also the Neighborhood Health Center in Pittsfield, but we cut back considerably by virtue of the fact that the distribution centers have closed, and that's helped us in a sense because it's made us more efficient, delivering more to fewer places.
Val, if I could just add to that. First, that Be Well Berkshire report was a very good report. In fact, we participated in that.
Oh,
with
okay.
Logan Vitsky. But when you said transportation, there are two transportation-related issues. Number one, there's transporting the produce. Secondly, there's transporting the individuals who don't have transportation and therefore can't get to the pantry to get the food.
Yeah.
Both pretty severe issues.
Yes, yes, yes. I'm just wondering, I mean, with all of the there's been so much development in terms of like route management for other, I'm wondering if there's software somewhere in the country, there's like an organization that's developed software so that people can get out, sign up for a route, and it's like, you know, your skills and time. Because one of the things, you know, as an individual, it's like, if you have a few hours, like just being able to jump on and say, oh, I'm driving. So for me personally, when I make a drive to South County from North County, it's like, if there was a place I could go and like, hey, you can stop at these 5 places on a route, like that would be awesome. I do it for myself because I'm aware, you know, I don't want to spend an hour driving unless I'm going to hit a few spots. But as an individual, like it would be really cool to be able to, you know, do some work for Berkshire Bounty if there was a way to easily kind of find out like, oh, here's my starting point, end point. Can I hit these 5 places and help you guys out and help people out on route?
Yeah, we've been in touch with a lot of similar organizations in other parts of the country, and our problem is that we are very spread out. You know, the operation like this in Boston does 3 million pounds a year, and you know they've got so many sources that are very close to where the food has to get to. And of course, they have a lot of money and they've got refrigerated trucks, et cetera, et cetera. For us, it's pretty tough because of the distances involved and how sparse the population is in many parts, like in Sandusfield, for example. No offense, Liana.
Yeah, yeah.
Does anyone else have questions? Val, are you?
Yeah, no, thank you. That was really helpful.
Yeah, I would say that, you know, this whole experience has shown us, you know, how much volunteerism there is and how much people in the Berkshires really want to help out, because it's really been gratifying to us how we've been able to attract new volunteers, the donations that we've gotten, and what we can do with those donations. You know, we've tried hard to leverage the people, leverage the food, and to leverage the money that we've gotten. You know, we had no idea about the 10% number that Val referred to, about how bad it is. You know, sometimes when most of the time we don't see who is the final end user of the food. We're delivering to a pantry and they put it out after we leave. But sometimes, you know, we have been there, and you know, you can see people, you know.
I hope that the nonprofit center is going to your point, be able to help a little bit with this situation that we have where people understand what's going on and really want to help, but getting the information they need to be able to help is a whole other story. And of course we have the Giving Back Guide, but if you don't have a copy, you can certainly download it online. But we are launching a website in mid-September called givebackberkshires.org that will be specifically for that connection. People who want to help and people who need help, right? And the information will be there, including, you know, descriptions of all the ways people can help, items that people can donate, and it will literally list things that nonprofits need, so that people can just peruse through that website and say, aha, those guys need art supplies, those guys need zucchini, you know, whatever it is. So we hope to just facilitate those connections, which is basically, that's our business, that's what we do, and it sounds like that's what you do as well. Facilitate connections. So I hope that we can help you find more volunteers in that way, and all nonprofits. We've been chipping away at this website for months now, and we're finally, it's up, givebackberkshires.org, but we're still proofing and adding. So, but there'll be at least over 100 organizations to start, and then any nonprofit can put themselves up there for free. So we're excited, super excited about that. We do have a couple of questions. Richard will get to you, but Linda Colvin had a couple of questions. Is Market 53 contributing? And she was wondering, I remember this too, there was some kind of law that was passed in Massachusetts about preventing supermarkets from discarding food at I don't know at what point they're allowed to and not allowed to. Can you tell us a little bit about how you work with markets and
Right. Well, Market 53, we've been in touch with them. We're in conversation with them, but we don't have a solid answer yet. In terms of the law passed in Massachusetts, the supermarkets that we work with are very clear in that they will not keep food or any food that they donate to us is 24 hours old or less. They won't permit us to pick up food that's been sitting off the shelves for more than a day. And further, even on the canned and packaged goods, when we, on our mobile food drive, we say, if you're donating food, be careful of the out dates, the expiration dates on the packaged goods. So we're very careful, and we haven't had even an inkling of a problem of picking up and delivering food that, for whatever reason, is inappropriate to eat.
But that makes me want to relate to you the fact that when we first pick up from a supermarket, sometimes the food isn't up to our standards, and we let them know, and they reform themselves. Very quickly, the food gets to be much better. So just by expressing, what is reasonable. We've gotten great response, and the food now, I mean, our new volunteers can't believe the quality of what we're delivering.
And part of the reason that has happened is because of the relationships that have been forged, not just by Jay and I, but by our team, by our volunteer teams. I mean, we know everybody in all the stores, well, not everybody, but the people we work with on a first name basis. That relationship factor goes a long way. Liana, if I can just scroll back for a moment, the Giving Back Guide I think is terrific. I'm very excited about that. As an add-on to that, when we've been first, COVID-19 stimulated a lot of people to stand up and say, I want to help, but I don't know where to go. Before the Giving Back Guide existed, what we would say is Berkshire United Way has gathered a ton of money from local businesses, and they started a COVID-19 fund with that money, and they were making grants, as some of you sitting in on this call may know. And we recommend that anybody who's interested in getting involved, go to the Berkshire United website, go to the COVID-19 box or whatever it is, and then click on all the organizations that they have given to. Because those organizations, in theory, have been, well, in fact, have been pre-screened by Berkshire United Way, and you can find an organization, whether it be food insecurity, homeless, whatever it is, you can find an organization that's involved in something that resonates with you. So that's another path for a volunteer who wants to do something to figure out what is there for me to do that I will enjoy doing.
If I'm not mistaken, they also have a way to facilitate when people need rides and things need to be delivered. There's a whole kind of spreadsheet for that, and you can put your name in and the times you're available, and somebody makes it happen.
Right. If somebody who's really motivated to do something goes online, there are ways to find stuff.
Yeah. I mean, obviously we have a huge number of nonprofits in Berkshire County. And thankfully, we have a huge number of really generous people and people who want to help. So, this is like, to me, the model community. And, obviously, it's not like we don't have any issues and everything is perfect, but it feels like there are a lot of things that happen in this community that might not be able to happen in other communities. And I'm thinking even just the success of Berkshire Bounty over 5 years, it's like an incredible, I mean, I'm assuming you two don't work on the side, that this is, that you're retired and this is what you're doing. So the fact that we have people like you to make these incredible things happen, I feel like we're very lucky to live in this area, because that is how so many things happen. It's just people with an idea who get some other people together, and it's really pretty impressive what you've done. So we are just about,
Richard had a question.
Oh yeah, Richard, good. This is perfect because we have 3 more minutes.
Great. So I just have 2 questions. One, we heard from Jay on how you started, getting involved in building this organization. I'd love to hear from Mark on what stimulated you to get involved. So that's question number 1. The second question is, I think, through this OLLI program, we've heard from a number of other nonprofits, but I think this is the first time that we've heard from sort of 2, co-chairs. And from a wonky management perspective, I'd just be curious, like, how you divide and conquer. Is there an inside guy and an outside guy? Like, how do you manage your time and collaborate with each other?
Well, we only have one brain between us, so that really helps.
Well, Jay is only half kidding on that. Jay and I are both financially oriented. We're both detail oriented. And I think we're pretty candid with each other. So we deal with any problem that comes up together, and we say, all right, you or me, who's going to follow up? And as more tasks have come at us, that's become more and more difficult, which I don't know if it's mentioned before, but we've just within the last couple of weeks, brought on our first paid employee, Jenny Schwartz, who is our operations manager. And we are in the process of, actually, Liana, I think her name may have came up in fuel when I saw you one day and I told you of our search for somebody.
Yeah, she's perfect because she's got that background. She's got food education for kids background. She was doing that for the co-op.
Exactly.
Right. She'll be working part-time for us, up to 20 hours a week.
Right. So Jay and I, and we're both sort of borderline OCD-ish. So that attention to detail, I think is a good match for this. But going back to your first question, how did I get involved? Well, as Jay said, he and I were having lunch and he was talking about his apples. And he said, hey, and it was Jay's idea. He said, why don't we get these apples into the hands of those who need them? And I said, all right, I'll give you a hand. 5 years later, and in terms of, I had no exposure to food insecurity. I have been involved in community affairs for some time, both politically and with Hevra and some other stuff. So I was open to something like this. And when I became aware of the extent of food insecurity, it just blew me away. Val, you made reference to 10% suffering food insecurity. That number has gone up. They had been citing 10 to 11, now they cite 10 to 12. And they don't know what the upper end is because there's no reliable data this soon after COVID-19.
I think the fact is that Mark and I both have the attitude, we like to get things done, and we really don't care who does it, So that's worked really, really well.
That's my attitude too.
Yep.
It seems to work. Just do it.
Liana, do I have time for 20 seconds more?
Yes, we do.
Okay, I told you we brought on Jenny Schwartz. She is the first element in making Berkshire Bounty a sustainable organization. So it's existing way beyond the time when Jay and I are sitting here talking to people or even around at all. We have a shot at doing it, and we're really trying to build for the future while at the same time meeting the immediate needs. But and that's a toughie. That is a tough problem to make. I think a lot of nonprofits have that same issue on their plates, how to become sustainable. So you're not dependent upon one person or one service or one location.
Or 2 people.
It's tough, but exciting when you hire that first person. And I'll say from personal experience, that is completely the key to growing. Right. One really great administrative marketing coordinating person can make it possible for the founders to do 8 zillion other things. And so I personally think you're on the right path. How that gets funded, I imagine that people can make donations to Berkshire Bounty at any time. You guys have a website. We've put the link up here in the chat box. And all of us understand, I think, how important that person is going to be to you and your growth. So for those, I can't even believe I'm saying this, but we're coming up on planning for year-end giving. We know that a third of donations are given in December. So all of us can tell 10 people and put Berkshire Bounty on our list of people to give to. And that list is on your website, so you can see everyone who supports you and add your own name. So thank you guys both so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
At your busiest time of year. And that's a great segue also for our next guest, Dennis Powell of the NAACP. He's a man who couldn't be any busier right now either. He was always that way, but it's the NAACP has a lot going on right now. So thank you both for joining us. And we are going to feel free to stay on with us and talk to Dennis, or if you need to go, certainly that's fine. If you need to go, pick some things. And Dennis, are you with us there? If you could unmute yourself and show us your video.
I am here.
I hear you. There we go.
I have returned.
Welcome. It's lovely to have you. And I have actually seen you a few times because I've started to tune into NAACP meetings, which are very good. And apparently I'm not the only one. So let's start. You are the president of the NAACP. And I would love to know, because I know that you are born and raised here, I think, more or less, but I don't know how you got to where you are today. I know you were involved in a number of community initiatives. So tell us sort of what led you to this path of where, I mean, you're a pretty major community leader, and I want to know how you got there.
Well, how much time do you have? No, I guess I was fortunate enough to really grow up during a time when there was a lot of activism happening around me. I had some excellent role models. I was a junior member of the NAACP in my youth. I've always, for some reason, gravitated to wanting to help the underdog, and pretty much being an underdog myself just by the nature of the color of my skin. I spent the best part of my adult life trying to justify to my children, especially after my wife passed, why education was important, because they continued to see me get rejected for employment once I showed up for the interview. I was very fortunate to have a grandmother who taught me early on, whatever I decided I was going to do, make sure you're 3 times better at that than any white person. Maybe you will get the job. Doesn't guarantee it. But unless you really know your craft really well, you stand no chance of getting the job. So that guided me all of my life. After my wife passed, I had two sons that I really had to make sure that they grew up well. So I was never able to use my voice because I didn't want any retaliation. My son happened to be excellent in sports. He was named the most outstanding football player for all of Western Massachusetts by the Massachusetts Hall of Fame. So protecting that and protecting him, to me, was more important than speaking out against injustice. And luckily, because I really took the hospitality industry as a whole and learned every aspect of it, I was as comfortable in any position, whether it was the kitchen, the dining room, behind the bar, the accounting office, whatever. So I was never unemployed. And once I no longer had my children to worry about any retaliation, that's when I really decided to now devote all my energy to being that voice for other children and other people. So that's when I really took this position or task, unpaid job, very seriously. And it's rewarding and gratifying. It's tough. You lose many friends, but you also gain many friends. And I always say, well, they probably weren't friends anyway. Because if you're against understanding that because we are all human, that in itself entitles all of us to equality and justice and fair justice. So when you have a problem with that, then I just wave goodbye and you're not really a loss as far as I'm concerned. So that's what got me here.
Speaking of friends, gaining friends, sadly or happily, depending on how you look at it, the murder of George Floyd sparked a lot more involvement on the parts of all people, but certainly, you know, Berkshire County is mostly white, so let's talk about our own county. I noticed that when I signed on to the Zoom NAACP meeting, there were something like 105 people on, which is unbelievable to me. And I think that you mentioned that this year you have at least 200 new members out of a total of 600 or something. So enormous growth.
Well, it's really enormous because prior to my first protest, which was Park Square, and then subsequently the protest in Great Barrington, we went from 150 members. Right now we're bordering on close to 700.
Wow.
And our meeting last week, that's why I thought it was very important with so many new members. We had Shirley Edgerton and Joel Priest, who are our co-chairs of our Racial Justice Committee, do a training on what is allyship. What does it mean to be a member of the NAACP? I mean, I am very optimistic and really pleased, and it's somewhat unfortunate that it took this death to get everybody's hearts beating and to open everyone's mind. But I think it's because of COVID. It's a terrible thing to think that some good can come out of something bad. But let's analyze that. Because of COVID, why was this death different? They've been killing Black and brown people for a long time. Black and brown people have been saying, I didn't have a knife, I didn't have a gun, I never had the drugs. They just weren't ever being believed. And by the grace of God, who allowed someone to invent cameras and phones, we now realize that they were telling the truth. And it was unfortunately the bad cops. And I want to say bad cops, because I don't want anybody to think that I am anti-police. I am anti-rogue police. I am anti-individuals who took the job because they knew they could exercise their brutality and that they could literally get away with murder. And this has been going on. If you go back into history and think of why law enforcement, even how it got started with the deputies, the sheriffs that tracked the runaway slaves. So this has been going on for God knows. And because everyone was home, they got to see Floyd's death. They got to hear his cry, his plead. They got to hear the other officer say to the other officer, I think you should remove it. Maybe we should sit him up. And he was defiant. Because I believe he woke up that day with the intent he was going to murder somebody, period. He knew who Floyd was because they worked in the same club or bar or whatever as bouncers, although he did not work the same shift as Floyd. And because of Floyd had been in trouble before, Floyd knew exactly how to react to police commands. And witnesses identified that he did everything he was told to do. So there was no reason for him to be on the ground, no reason for him to be not alive today. So everybody got the opportunity to see that because we were all home because of COVID. And that's what made the difference. This, unlike this, the protest of the 60s and the marches with Dr. King and John Lewis and all of that, I mean, people really got to see this worldwide. And that's what started this movement. And I believe the movement today is real, much realer than it was back in the 60s and whatnot. And the reason I believe it will last for a long time is because, thank God, our young have woken, they have come out with their voices and they are not going to stop. Our young generation understand, they know, they're more accepted of humanity, all humanity. They've had an opportunity through college and all of that to really see that that Black person wasn't the person that they had been identified to them in their youth. So the young people are really galvanized. I mean, I love, one of the things that I'm part of is the Railroad Street Youth Project. Not that I had any more room on my plate, but because it involved youth, I made room. And just seeing their energy and their involvement is like me taking vitamins every day. The young lady who knew she wanted to do something because of Floyd, 17 years old, Great Barrington, called me up and said, I know I want to do something. I would like to protest that Black Lives Matter, but I don't know how to do it. Can you help me? And I said, absolutely. Well, that young 17-year-old, 17 years young person had over 1,000 people. I think it was the largest protest that we have done in Berkshire County. That's what was at that rally and that protest. And her voice was, when she spoke, she was so positive and so real. I went over to her parents and I said, you really just confirmed to me that hate is truly a taught behavior. And clearly, just from listening to your daughter, I know that the environment in her household was nothing but love. And they thanked me. And I said, you know, I know you're proud. I said, I'm proud, and she's not even my daughter. Just to hear her voice and for her to be so strong in her conviction and to take this risk. And I had another young man when I did the protest in Park Square. He come over to me and he says, Mr. Powell, what do I do next? And I said, well, do you have siblings? He said, yeah. I said, talk to him. I said, you got parents? I said, you must have parents because you're born, you're here. He says, yeah. I said, talk to them. I said, and then talk to your friends and be willing to lose some friends because it'll happen. But understand that for every friend you lose, you'll gain 3 because of the person you are and you're trying to be. I says, and you're not going to believe this, but your voice as a young white male is more powerful than my voice as president of the NAACP. And I think I scared the young man. I think he was saying, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? But this is the movement that's really happening. It's the young generation who are really going to make the change, make the difference, because it's not about words. And I say to, I was fortunate enough in June to become 75 years young. And I say to everybody, we need to listen to our youth. We don't need to talk. They're not looking for confirmation in what they're saying. They want us to listen. And we need to listen because they truly have something to say. They know what's going on. Collectively, they know they can fix it. I think the best panel I ever was on, I think it would have taken 3 of the panelists adding up their age to equal my age. And that was the best panel I ever participated in, because these young people, and it was at MCLA, these young people were bright and brilliant and just know what's going on and have the tools in their toolbox to help us fix it. So if I can give any advice to those that are in my bracket, be willing to listen.
Dennis, does the NAACP facilitate the kind of meeting of those minds? I didn't notice. I noticed some young people in the meeting. You guys have a monthly meeting. It's the first Wednesday of every month, I believe, from 6 to 8,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so one of the things I did, I was a member of the NAACP, but I was not showing up to meetings because I was busy. But then Black Lives Matter happened, and I thought, I got the message, right? Show up. So I started showing up, and I did see some young faces, but I know that you also have a youth group. Will there be some opportunity for us older folks to interact with that younger group at some point? Because now, of course, I want to, hearing how much hope you have in that generation, I would like to hear what they have to say, but when I see announcement of some of the youth meetings that you have, it doesn't seem like I'm invited. So,
Well, what it is, and and thank God for Shirley, Jerome Edgerton, who works with the young men through sessions, and of course Shirley with rope. Ever since the COVID, these young people have been having weekly Zooms covering all kind of topics. I have been allowed to participate as long as I kept my mic muted. Unfortunately, and this is why I say this, that we just need to sit and listen. When they first started allowing people in, the adults felt they needed to take over. They needed to control the conversation. And we had to keep reminding them that this was not about them. And I was really amazed, because to hear at their age, I didn't even know what depression was. And to have them talk about what they were going through because of COVID-19. And to talk about the tools that they were using, their own tools, to manage what was happening with them. And then having this discussion of other toolkits and things that could happen. I was so impressed. I mean, I was allowed to go on just as they were getting off, just to, Shirley wanted me to introduce myself and to just, I just had to tell them how brilliant I thought they were, and how some of the stuff they were talking about at their age, I never had a clue to even start a discussion. So to your question, yes, you will at some point be allowed. And one of the things that I have done with the NAACP, I believe in generational organization. So of my committee, standing committee chairs, I always make sure that the co-chairs are an older person and a younger age person. Like Ray Bridges, who is just incredible with environmental and climate justice. He is co-chair with Al Blake, who also, that's his passion. And together, they learn from each other. The other unique thing by having this type of an arrangement, Ray Bridges gets to communicate and recruit people of his age group. And Al gets to communicate, and then it all comes. So we are trying to really expand the organization, because again, I would like to really retire for real at some point.
So speaking of the kind of growth that you're experiencing, obviously people want to help. we're getting the message of the kinds of things that we need to be doing, educating ourselves, going back over Black history, reading, showing up, speaking up. There are trainings going around. I thought what you did at last week's meeting was really great, how to be an ally. I was wondering if maybe you would share just a couple of those points on how to be an ally. And even if it's just to reiterate some of the things from that meeting, there were some good reads and some good documentaries. I don't know if you remember the names of them off the top of your head, but anything you want to throw at us that we should be doing right now?
Well, I think you said it. It's about everybody educating themselves. I mean, Google is an amazing thing. You don't even have to type the whole word or the thought. You can start and get 3 letters in and it pops up. You know, I did this this PowerPoint presentation to Greylock Federal Credit Union because John Bissell, I think, has just taken the lead. They're clearly committed to community and to growth. He fully understands what happened during the whole redlining with respects to Black people being able to own property and homes and get loans and all of that. And he has just done such a tremendous job in really trying to redefine what his organization, Greylock Credit Union, is all about. And clearly diversifying. It's wonderful to walk through the doors and look across the lobby and see someone behind the counter that looks like me. Not have to walk up and study to see if there's any pigment in their skin to know that they're a Black person. Everybody talks about diversifying, but unfortunately, it's become a diversification based on the amount of or lack thereof melanin in the skin. Where with Greylock, it is not so. And when I always like to use my cooking metaphor of that. When a fish rots, it rots from the head to the tail, never from the tail to the head. So when leaders take something serious and they lead, everyone under them follows. And that is the real, you see that throughout Greylock and their branches. One of the reasons for doing that training last week, and we're going to do quarterly trainings, very similar with our membership, because we all have good intentions. But doing advocacy work, sometimes if you don't understand, you end up creating more of a problem than creating a solution to fix a problem. So people have their hearts are in the right place, but they need to understand and I think the success of the training last week was Shirley and Joe showing the video, which was
Dr. What's her name?
Yeah, white fragility.
Thank you. Good.
Just showing the 20 minutes of that video really set I think, the tone for that meeting to be successful.
And I think, Dennis, that the whole thing, I think, was about we need common language and common references in order to be able to have the conversation. Because white people can't know what it's like to be Black. You can think you know, but you just can't know. And I think that was the wake up of George Floyd, was that, you know, some of us were naively thinking things were getting better because we actively campaigned and were the happiest people on earth when Barack Obama was elected, but that didn't solve all the problems, unfortunately. And so we, you know, we just, if we don't get that, the perspective and the training and the language and the reminders and the history, some of us were not paying attention in history when we were 15. If we need all of that in order to have the conversation and all be on the same page. Otherwise, you cannot understand what is going on.
And unfortunately, you know, you were probably paying attention to history. It just wasn't history. History just wasn't being taught, not real history. Because to teach real history, you also have to teach the ugliness that was associated with it, the cruelty, what people could do to human beings. So that's why it's very difficult to teach real history. It isn't that real history wasn't recorded. Like I said, you can Google anything today. You can go to the Library of Congress and you can look up real history. They just didn't put them in the books. I often say, can you imagine if Black girls and white girls had have been taught who was responsible for the space program? Those 3 brilliant Black women, how many young girls would have gone into STEM? How many would have realized that, geez, maybe I could do that? You take away the role models and you give kids nothing to look up to. I'm a cowboy. I've always been a cowboy. Love Westerns. I tell the story, I used to run around pretending to be Gene Autry and Long Ranger and all these other clowns, because I didn't know that there were Black cowboys. Had no clue till I started checking history. I truly, as a young kid, that's who I would have been running around the neighborhood pretending to be. Okay? So it is about history. It is about teaching ourselves. It is about self-reflection. Only white people can be racist. I can be biased and bigoted, but I can't be racist because the system didn't allow it. Systemic racism was not designed for people of color. That's why a lot of times people will say, well, can you come and talk about race? I said, no, I ain't got a problem with race. You got the problem with race. I ain't got a problem. So I think people are willing to educate. There is a podcast starting on August 28th, where there is, and it's sponsored, co-sponsored by Heritage Foundation. It is actors and actresses. They are going to read Du Bois's Black Reconstruction. It's going to start on the August 28th and go until November 3rd, right till the election day. And I can send you that link if you want to distribute it out. I mean, and then Dr. Francis Jones Sneed is putting together a group of scholars, and they're going to be reading Du Bois's Souls of Black Folks. And that also is going to be on a Zoom or something or live. So again, it's how do we educate ourselves?
Isn't there a
Start-
screening tomorrow? Do I have that right? A documentary called Rigged,
Oh yeah, that's tomorrow night. Yes,
6:30, and that information's on your website.
right.
So we'll provide everyone with this information for sure. I don't want to interrupt your train of thought, but we did have a question which was about the coordination between the national branch and our local branch, and how much leeway you have and local chapters have to kind of define their mission.
Okay, we're actually part of NEAC, which is the New England Area Conference out of Boston. So all of the New England chapters fall under NEAC. Okay, and we have quarterly meetings. We will now have them. I think we've had one by Zoom already, but usually, and we have, naturally, we have to follow the bylaws and the guidelines from the national office. But national also knows that each community is different. There are no two communities that are alike. So we are able to, like, national came out with 6 game changers for 2021. We, in our strategic planning organization, we took the 6 and we added 2 to it. So we have 8 game changers. And these are things that we are going to work on in order to build community. And these 8 game changers are economic stability, education, health, public safety, criminal justice, voting rights, and political representation. In addition, we're going to expand our youth and young adult engagement, climate justice, and housing. On a very bold agenda for 2021. And we're going to be reaching out to our new members, identifying what our standing committees are, so that anyone that there's something that interests, because for instance, somebody is really interested in education, especially here in Berkshire County. Well, I'm fortunate enough to have Dr. Francis Jones Sneed as the chair of my education committee for the NAACP. So we'll be looking for individuals that might want to join that if education is something that you strongly care about. We've got to get back to advocating for diversification in our educational system throughout Berkshire County, and especially Pittsfield Public Schools. We were more diverse in the 60s, in 68, 69, 70, in our schools than we are today. And this is part of the problem. It's very hard when children don't see anybody that looks like them in the administration or in the classroom, you know. And it's that old saying, my partner and I have this saying, when white people get a cold, black people get pneumonia. So during this COVID thing, when it's bad for some, it's worse for others. And when unemployment is low, then it also affects people, black and brown people. it's human nature. People want to take care of their relatives, their friends, their friends' friends. So it's really hard to break that. Seal. I know our kids would do better because I see how they respond when there is a Black person standing in front of them, talking to them, how attentive they are. A lot of times, our students don't encounter someone Black in the classroom till they go to college. And they run into a professor, and then they question whether or not he's capable of even teaching them because they haven't had that exposure. And I went to a seminar, and they actually did a study on this, and this was very real in a lot of the colleges. And it wasn't just Black kids who questioned whether they could be taught by someone Black. White students as well didn't feel that they were going to get a quality education from this person. So we really need to do something at the young level. My grandmother used to say, we deal with our children in the high chair, and that will keep them out of the electric chair. And that's something I have always kept in the back of my mind. So that means that we deal with our children very, very young in life. And that's when we start training and teaching and educating.
So Dennis, in the few minutes that we have left, if people want to become involved, if you Google NAACP Berkshires, up will come your website. You can join. The membership fee is very modest. I believe it's $30.
Yeah, and of that modest fee, we only retain $11 of that 30. The rest goes to national. So that's why we really work hard at increasing our membership, because those are the funds that we need to operate to do what we do.
So
this
people
year,
can also donate.
yes, so you can donate, you can join, you can become. I received a membership from an 80-year-old woman who said, I can't come out and protest, but I figured I could at least join. And I sent her a little note back saying, this is your protest. You are helping just by becoming a member. So yes, you can become a member. You can go on our website. You can go on our Facebook page. We really keep the Facebook page up. Leah, our vice president, does an excellent job with that. The website has not only the history of national, but also the history of the NAACP of Berkshire County. And we have many links to other organizations that we partner with. We're in the process of renewing our website, really bringing it up, the quality of it. But yeah, and
you need committee members.
Yeah, and don't think you don't have an idea or you don't fit. And I often tell people, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, that's the NAACP, which was not started by a group of Black men. It was actually started by a group of white men. W.E.B. Du Bois was the only Black member, or initially, as one of the co-founders, but the majority of them were white men. So And the Berkshire County chapter actually had, at one point, a white president of the Berkshire County chapter. So it's about people who care about humanity and justice and the rights for all people. These are the people that join, and your voices are welcome. There's work that has to be done. Unfortunately, 45 has given a new meaning to coming out of the closet. He has brought every hateful person, every mean-spirited person out of the closet. And it's throughout our nation, and it's throughout Berkshire County. We do have a serious problem with racism in all our schools. I mean, I watched the Smith graduation Sunday because my good friend Jean Clark Mitchell received her doctorate. And there was two young ladies who spoke, graduates who spoke. And one was given an award. And she spoke very passionate about the racism that she dealt with for the 4 years that she was at Smith College, that went unheard of by the administration, and that this award was not going to erase what she went through for 4 years. And all of our colleges throughout Berkshire County are going through this same problem. So it's not just other places. It is systemic here in the beautiful Berkshires. And we can all work to improve our situation. I can't change national. To me, I tell everybody, you start local. Politics is local. It's not national. The work is local. It's not national. It's what we do for ourselves to make the lives better in our own communities. Inviting and welcoming. It's here. It's not anywhere else. So I welcome anybody willing to do the work.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you for taking time out of your crazy busy schedule to be with us and just talk with us. This has been a really great session. It was recorded, is being recorded, and will be available online on Ollie's YouTube channel, which is great. So for people who were on vacation this week, wherever, we'll be able to tune in, and we'll be able to share it with people as well. Dennis, anything you want to share with the group, you can email to me. Any links or suggestions, because Megan will send it out to everyone tomorrow along with the link of the recording. So
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. You know, it's always wonderful to have an opportunity just to speak to people and let them know what we're about and who we are and how they can join us and become part of us and work with us on this.
I like this format too. It's just us talking, and it's informal. It's not a lot of pressure. You don't have to stand up at a podium, and it's kind of nice. You do enough of that. So thank you so much for letting us into your living room there. And everyone, it's time to go get your 4 o'clock whatever. Iced tea, something. Thank you all.
Thank you.